IT in a school should not be a silo. Instead, it should be a service to the overall institution and its mission for learning. We're going to talk about that next on part 2 of the series around IT on the Edtech vlog. Hi, I'm Dr. Matt Harris, and this is the Edtech vlog. In part 1 of this series, we talked about what an IT department does in a school. And we talked about the 5 elements of IT in a school. The notions of planning, the network, data, security, and support. So we know what an IT team does, but how does that fit within the fabric of the school? And how do we shift that role of IT from being one that is purely focused on IT to being a service to the school? And that's really what we're looking for out of our IT departments. So what I say to schools is the IT department should be focused on service, not servers. And that often can be a shift because a number of our IT departments are used to a level of autonomy and separation. And this autonomy comes in a number of ways. One of them is that they come usually from a different background from most of the other people that work in the school. IT professionals tend to come from a corporate background or some background related to more intense use of technology than the educators that they're serving. So there's almost like a cultural or an education gap between the IT department and the rest of the school. Number 2, because of the complexity of IT and the specialization of IT, they tend to find that their expertise and requirements don't align really with the needs of the rest of the institution. Even the other operational pieces, so the human resources or maintenance or finance, those are different than the individual requirements of IT. Further, IT is very unique in that it touches everything. I said in the previous episode that IT is the circulatory system of a school, and data is the blood flow. But think about the circulatory system within your body. Your circulatory system has capillaries and veins and arteries and pieces where blood flows to every single part of your body. IT does the same thing in a school. And so because of that, IT departments almost feel like they are so important that they are individual, that they need special attention, as do cardiologists, I would assume. But that's not true. Really, IT is not its own individual entity or individual silo that has influence over everybody else. It really needs to be a service to the school. So what we're going to talk about today in this episode is what does that mean and how do you do that? How do you make IT a service to the school? So first off, let's define service. The service that I'm talking about for IT is having a service to the mission of the school, not to itself, a service to the people in the school, and I mean any person, any employee, any student, any teacher, administrator, governing board member, community member. They're a service to those people, not to their own devices. They're a service to departments, and they're a service to the learning. The learning within the school should be the view of the IT department, where decisions are made not just for the IT team, but for the overall organization and the learning of those people within. Does that make sense? So we're talking about IT being connected to everybody in a symbiotic, relationship-based interaction rather than a transactional relationship. So it's a service to these people, to these other people and parts of the institution, rather than being just a caretaker. And that's the mindset that we're looking for within our IT teams, is that they have a service level mindset for everybody that they're interacting with, not a transactional mindset. So how do we create an IT service approach for our IT systems? The first part is that you need to create an ethos, an understanding and a belief around service for the IT departments. That's absolutely critical in order to create this view of IT as a service in a school. How do you do that? What are the things that you can do on the ground? Number one, I have found that many IT departments and schools that I've worked with don't really understand what the realities are of a teacher, of the learning elements within the institution. Help them become a part of that. And what I would do is first take them through an instructional exercise where you list the activities of a teacher just for one lesson. Not for a day, but just for a lesson. So what does a lesson look like? Well, there are entry behaviors, there's instructional elements, there are activities, these are tied to curricula, there's usually some sort of assessment that is formative that then ties into some sort of exit element, so an exit ticket or something to that approach, that effect. Have them go through that. Have them have the view of a teacher who is focused primarily and passionately about the learning of the student. Then take that further and say, okay, now let's put the element of IT in this, and a projector or a computer or an online resource for one element for 5 minutes. What happens if there's a deficiency there? What happens if it breaks? What is the cascading effect? And then have them take that waterfall approach to what happens to the rest of the lesson. Now think about you as a service person, your job is to help make sure those things are working, that you have the right tools so that they don't break and that they're fit for purpose. And if they do break, that there's a responsiveness, an SLA, a service level agreement about the responsiveness so that a teacher can trust what you're doing. Okay? And then you take it even further and you say, okay, so if there's a problem that has cascaded through the lesson, what happens to the next lesson and the next lesson and the unit and the year? So teachers, in their mindset, not necessarily all being technical, understand the value of short snippets of time and the trust of the tools within the system. So if you're looking for engagement, if you're looking for best practices around teachers and for them to view you as a service, you need to understand their view of the time and requirements towards the learning within the institution. I would then take our IT professionals in to view a few lessons. Watch them use the technology and interact with the kids. Watch them have a problem in real time. It's an amazing connection between the IT department and teachers when they can see it live. The next thing I would do is take the IT department and have a real detailed discussion of where they fit within the institution. And using this description that I had before, this metaphor that IT is the circulatory system of the school, is a great way to do it. Because then they can understand that there are all these various roles of keeping the institution alive for its purpose, and IT is at the center. We don't live our lives to keep our heart going. Our heart going keeps us alive. That metaphor is incredibly powerful for IT departments and can go really far for them. So have them understand where they fit within the system and why their relationships are so strong, why they're so important, and how to approach those relationships, especially when their understanding of IT is going to be so much different than everybody else. From there, you can help them create norms of communication with other people that are absolutely valuable. So do relation-based approaches, focus on EQ, focus on soft skills, focus on building people up who might not have the understanding or disagreements with you because you're all working towards the same purpose of the mission of the school. And when we get out of this model of I'm focused on IT, if the computers work, that's all I have to do, and more towards the computers are working to help the learning of the students as a conduit where I am just important to this process as the teacher is, then you create this amazing symbiotic relationship between all the people in the school. But sadly, that has to come from the IT department. It's not fair, it's not even, it's not equal, but teachers will have a different mindset about the IT department, and they're not a boulder we're going to be able to move. We can move the IT department, and when they do that, it gives them more power, more influence, and more value within the institution, which is something that's usually lacking from an IT department. They don't feel that they're overly valued within the school. But schools are relation-based organizations. If IT teams can understand they are a service to the organization and focus on relationships, they can be incredibly valuable to that entity. But they have to focus on the relationships. The next thing I would do is talk about the cultural elements of interactions from staff members. Now let me talk about this from my standpoint. I live in Asia, and the schools that I work with predominantly have a mixture of Asian employees and Western expats usually. So there's a bit of a juxtaposition of approaches towards communication between these two entities. And that's because the approaches to problem and culture are much different. Whereas a Western approach may be to call out the problem immediately to get at the heart of it and find a solution, The Eastern approach is a little bit different. It's more about honor and saving face and making sure that there's a level of respect for hierarchy, and so problems won't normally be called out in the same respect. This is something that needs to be discussed and understood, because staff may come from a Western approach working with Eastern employees, where their approaches may come off as brash and rude and can't be done, need to be dealt with a soft touch. And working with Eastern-based approaches, where Eastern-based staff or Eastern-focused cultures need to have an understanding that Western-based folks are going to assume that no discussion about a problem is either ignoring it or the problem is solved. And that really is not what's happening if there are issues. So having the discussion, that having an open line of communication, even to say, I haven't made any progress, things haven't moved forward, that alone is incredibly valuable from a Western approach. Again, it's this relationship focus that has to bridge some of the cultural gaps within the institution. That is incredibly important in turning IT into a service entity. Now, what are some other resources that we can focus on? There are some things that we can do to help support the IT staff to make them feel valued and give them some measures of success for service orientation in the school. And I'm going to talk about two of them specifically. So there are two outside resources that we use specifically to support IT staff in understanding the quality and service orientation within a school. The first one is ITIL. I think it's Information Technology Information Library or something like that, Instructional Library, something like that, ITIL. Just search it online. And there are a number of certifications and resources that can help IT teams build their service orientation. It is incredibly powerful. The training materials are something I've used in a number of schools. And it's a real huge, valuable tool to help from an outside perspective that takes an IT-based approach. If we take an educational-based approach with IT staff, that may not work. But taking an IT certification approach could work very strongly with the IT staff. The next piece I want to talk about is ISO 20000. It's focusing on IT as a service through the International Standards Organization. Now, a lot of schools and entities will go for ISO 9001, which is valuable, but it's kind of a lower bar. ISO 20000 talks about processes, procedures, interactions, trainings, all of these key elements around the functional pieces of turning IT into a service for the organization. In fact, I think it's called IT as a service. It then provides KPIs at a rigorous level where if a school can hit ISO 20000, they have now proven to the organization and to the people within the IT department that service orientation is key. So ISO 20000 is a great thing to look at. A couple of other items to take a look at is training programs where the IT team can be shown value to the rest of the institution. So allow them to do training around some of the specific tools and entities. And then I spoke about this before around the ticketing system. Use and live and love the ticketing system so that everything is documented, and the IT team has what it loves the most, and that is data to justify what they're talking about and the interactions that they're doing. If they've got IT ticketing data to show where problems align, where common discussions come in, where miscommunications lie, they can use that to improve their own practice and as a basis for discussion as they do this relational approach with everybody on campus. So again, those four key items: ITIL, ISO 20000, training externally from the IT department, and then this focus on using the ticketing system. Now, I've talked a lot. This has been pretty complicated, and obviously it gets really nuanced. But the key element here is helping the IT team from the management on down, understanding that their role in the school is one of service towards the mission, the people, the departments, the positions. Again, the key element here is shifting IT's view of their position within the school to that of being a service entity, and starting this from the IT management on down. So talk to the IT managers and the deputies and the service owners, or the systems administrators, the database administrators, and have this relational view, which is the way that schools work. If you're able to have a relational view and have an ethos of service, the power and value of IT in a school can be unbounded. It can allow for all the amazing things that we really want to happen in education. But again, it's that service orientation. So hey, do me a favor, and down at the bottom here, you'll notice there are a couple of buttons. One of them is to subscribe to my channel, where you'll be able to see the previous episode where I talk about how an IT department works, and further discussions that I'm going to have around ITIL, or ISO 20000, around the value of a strong ticketing system, or even talk about some of the auditing and planning work that I do with schools around the world, and even districts and large-scale schools groups. I also talk about a lot of these things on my Twitter channel. So please follow me on Twitter, @MattHarrisEDD is my handle, and I will share a lot of resources and have conversations around the key elements related to IT in schools. So please follow me there, connect with me and all that. I hope you enjoyed these 2 parts of the series. I hope they have sparked some thought and creativity within you, maybe some discussions in your school about IT orientation towards service, or even IT functionality within your school and what is and is not being done. If you want to talk about these further, please send me a note. I'd love to chat with you and help you out. And I'm available all over the place, anywhere in the world. But anyway, thanks for coming. Thanks for listening. Thanks for paying attention. Have a great day. Bye.